Keto and crime, keto and crime. We uncover the grime on keto and crime. Keto and crime, keto and crime. Now is the time for keto and crime.
Hey everyone, Tracy here from Keto and Crime. Thank you so much to every single one of my patrons and channel members. You make this possible. And you're one of the reasons I do this. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if I haven't said it before, thank you. I'll sing it. Thank you. Thank you for hanging in there with me and letting me geek out, not making fun of me like a lot of other people do, because I like weird stuff about crime and dark history. Thanks, everyone. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Keto and Crime. Today, I've got another installment in our series on mad medical experiments. Now, this one was not initiated by any government. It was initiated by a regular old guy that decided he was going to take drastic measures to save his life. The man you see in front of you is Angus Barbieri. He lived in Scotland and retired to England after this experiment, but this is the far picture of him is him at his highest weight of 456 pounds. Now, like most of us, Angus struggled with overeating. Being this was the 60s, we still had the proliferation of all the processed foods and things like that. So he was eating a lot of that. Plus, his family owned a fish and chips restaurant, so he was working there. And fish and chips, yes. So he had a lot of temptation going on, and he was starting to see his health decline. Now, the other picture is him receiving his first meal after a fast lasting 387 days, 1 year and 17 days. And you can note the difference. He went from 456 pounds to 180 pounds and actually kept the weight off. 5 years after the fast ended, when he weighed in at 196 pounds. And according to most people, he stayed under 200 pounds the remainder of his life. So he did keep it off. But why? Why this gentleman? Why did he decide he wanted to fast for over a year? Well, Angus decided that the best way to lose the weight was just to refuse food. He walked into the Royal Infirmary at the University of Scotland in Dundee, basically a university hospital, and told them that he was prepared to refuse food to lose the weight. And he was going to do it whether they helped him or not. Now, being this is the 60s, there wasn't a whole lot they could do. It's not like, today where you could possibly have somebody committed or have them ruled incompetent for saying something like that. So they said, well, we either help this guy out and monitor him, or he's going to go off and do it by himself and possibly die. So they did what medical professionals should do, and they admitted him to the hospital and kept food from him. But they gave him a complete medical exam. He had no underlying conditions that they could find, and they insisted that he take vitamin supplements and have fluids in addition to water during the course of his fast. So he was given regular water, mineral or soda water, tea, coffee, and occasionally the coffee or tea would have milk and sugar in it. So it wasn't just black coffee or unflavored tea. So that is what he existed on for literally a year and 17 days. And his body responded quite well to it. He had hunger pangs, he had withdrawals as, he came off sugar and other things. There's that word again, sugar. Sugar always tends to be the culprit. But, he had the headaches, he had the rumbly stomach, he had the feeling kind of nauseous for a while as he came off sugar and other additives. But once he came off of that, after about 4 days, everything seemed to stabilize. And his hunger was even reduced. And he was able to live a few months at the hospital with no side effects that they could see, and so they released him to go home with the promise he would return weekly for a check-in and some overnight stays in the hospital. And he returned home. He did leave his job at the fish and chips place and worked another job that did not require him to be around food, and continued not eating, drinking water, tea, coffee, sometimes with milk and sugar. And that was his entire diet. He drank a lot. He said that he went to the bathroom a lot, and for the most part, lived a normal life. Now, he entered the hospital in June of 1965. In July of 1966, July 11th, 1966, he returned to the hospital for a final weigh-in, and he had reached his goal weight of 180 pounds. Now, his first meal after completing the fast was just what that doctor is serving him there. He had black coffee, 1 hard-boiled egg, and 1 piece of toast with butter. And that was his first meal after breaking fast. And he managed to keep it off. He ate very small meals just like that. He started out for a few months eating that very same breakfast as well as a small dinner. And eventually his small, you can imagine how small the size of his stomach has shrunk by this time. So he would eat very small meals and eventually worked his way up to normal meals, normal size meals, and eventually got married and moved to London. And as I said, 5 years after the fact, he was still 196 pounds. Now, what happened here? How is this possible? First of all, let me say, yes, he lost over almost 300 pounds doing this, but please, for the love of whoever you worship, do not attempt this. Fasts of this length should only be undertaken with medical supervision. Please, do not do this. This is not a good way to lose weight. But fasting is very beneficial. You see intermittent fasting all over the interwebs. So it does work. It has a lot of benefits besides weight loss. It clears the mind. It rejuvenates cells because cells have a chance to actually die and be reborn when you're fasting instead of putting all the energy toward digestion. Digestion takes a lot of energy. So there's a lot of other benefits to fasting than just weight loss. There's not a religion around that doesn't incorporate some sort of fasting. In fact, there's a lot of benefits to short-term fasting. And when I say short-term, I mean a couple of days, and where does this come from? And how is he able to lose weight like that and not get sick? Well, it goes back to our very roots as a species. Food was not as plentiful as it was for us, for 𝗤𝐷𝐴 and 𝗏𝐷𝐴, way back when, for Paleolithic, Neolithic man. They had to hunt and search for their food. Edible plants, animals, they had fruit, they had to look for it. So they could go days without eating, sometimes a week or more without eating, because you think when they found food, they ate a lot. They ate until they could hold no more because they might not be able to eat for several days. And what scientists have discovered is that deep in our genes is self-defense mechanisms that will switch on. Think of a heating and air conditioning unit in a house. If something happens to the main unit, the heat pump will kick on, and that's your auxiliary power. That's what happens in our bodies. You have your food comes in and it's broken down into glucose, and the glucose is used for fuel. The fuel, any glucose that's not used up is stored in the pancreas and the muscles as glycogen for later, and anything else is stored as fat in our fat cells. So that's kind of the status quo. But when that food supply goes away, it turns on after 3 to 4 days. It will turn on 3 to 4 days without food, and your body will switch over to its heat pump. And it will begin tapping into those supplies. First, it will use all the glycogen stored in the pancreas and the muscles, and then it will turn to the fat stores, and it will supplement the calories you need from the fat, as well as just generally slowing down your metabolism. So you will feel weak. You won't have as much energy. You won't be able to go out and run, a 5K on no food, but you will be able to survive. The danger zone comes when you've used up all of your fat stores. And for this gentleman, that was over a year. I mean, a lot of us have a lot of fat stores. And if he had gone on, then his body would have started to cannibalize his muscle. Now, that's the reason intermittent fasting has been deemed as so effective, because you go several hours without food. I intermittent fast every day. I eat my last meal by 8 o'clock. Most nights I don't eat again until afternoon the next day. So I'm fasting anywhere from 16 to 20 hours a day. And honestly, it works for me. I don't get any ill effects. I don't feel lightheaded. I love it. I mean, I do have coffee in the morning with a little bit of cream and artificial sweetener. That to me does not break my fast. I don't feel anything different. It might, but for the most part. And then I don't eat actual solid food until later in the afternoon, about 1 or 2. And then I have dinner about, finish up dinner about 8, and I don't eat again until the next day. So I find it very beneficial for me. It allows me to have larger portions, larger meals in that time span. And that's the type of intermittent fasting to me that's that scientists have said is the most beneficial, is that, controlled fasting, short-term fasts. I know a lot of people that fast 24 hours. They eat every other day, and it doesn't ill-inform them. So, it takes us back to our roots with 𝗙𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏, that we can withstand long periods of time without food. But just like anything, it shouldn't be abused. And that's how scientists theorize that he was able to do this. And it's only because he had no underlying health conditions. He was a perfectly healthy guy, just very obese. And that's how he was able to sustain it. And he did it the right way. He refed himself the correct way. Whereas when you break a fast, especially a prolonged fast, you should break it like he did, with a very small meal, heavy in protein and fat. That's the reason keto is so effective, because it mimics fasting in a lot of ways. Your body doesn't recognize protein and fat the same way it does carbohydrates, so it keeps that blood sugar steady as if you were fasting. So that's the reason keto is so effective. But any type of fast, you should break it like he did, with a very small meal, and he fed up. They monitored his caloric output, his caloric intake, and it was, not until about a year later he was actually eating normal portions. So he didn't go out and have a whole large pizza, because it would have come right back up. So he did it the correct way. There's a scientific method to refeeding after a prolonged fast, and they did it the right way. And like I said, he had medical supervision, took vitamins, and had plenty of fluids. So do not do that without medical supervision. If you want to try like an 8-hour fast, I think anybody can do that without any serious repercussions. But anything longer than that, definitely talk to your doctor. And so that is the story of the man who went over a year without eating. And that is just one of the many mad medical experiments. And with that being said, I'll be back really soon. I've got a double header for you this weekend on the killer clown, John Wayne Gacy. So looking forward to that. And with that being said, until next time, keto and crime.